Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We appreciate it and look forward to what I think will be a very interesting conversation and presentation today on the veteran homelessness and even more important, veteran housing in Southern Arizona and specifically in Pima County and Tucson. Um, I am Tom Litwicky, and I serve as CEO for OPCS. And I'm thrilled today that we have Patrick Hazlett, who is serves as the clinic supervisor at the VA's homeless clinic over there at the wonderful VA hospital in our region, and Melanie Skillin, who is manager over our veteran housing and services and programs for OPCS. So a lot of experience here, and yeah, we'll get right into it. It's sort of my role to introduce and to kind of give some sort of a very basic foundational beginning to this work today. Kind of what's been happening, maybe a little bit locally and nationally. But I won't be real heavy on slides, but I do have a couple slides because by golly, that's just the way it works, I think. So let me share my slide screen with you. So again, thank you for the opportunity. You should be looking at my slides now. Um, this is the sixth in our series of webinars. Our way of trying to kind of reach out to the community to help with be informed and to help us get feedback and information from our partners and stakeholders and others in the community. All right. Veteran homelessness is unique, I think, in a number of ways. One of them, though, that I wanted to highlight is that um, we at OPCS believe everyone deserves safe housing and a safe place to restart their life, that springboard, that foundation. What is one area that's kind of unique, though, about veterans is that our veteran community, it's not just that we're providing this as a safety net. This is an agreement between the community and veterans that OPCS is proud to be able to express that agreement and to implement that agreement. When people are joining the armed forces, they are opening themselves up to the highest sacrifice of putting their life on the line for the United States. And as an agreement with that, there are certain contractual agreements between the veteran and you could say the government, but I really would think of it as the community. It's that because they've done that, they have certain access to health care and they have certain access to housing and other support services. And I just want to emphasize how, for us, this is really exercising the community's agreement with the veteran to be able to provide these services. We're one piece of a larger puzzle. We provide the housing, shelter, transitional housing, and pathways into permanent housing. But it really is this larger agreement and contract and the respect for those folks who have put themselves in the position of making the ultimate sacrifice for our community so we can have our freedom. So I'm sure others could give even more information about the unique uh, uh, characteristics and concerns around veteran homelessness. Um, the the other thing I wanted to mention, and I provided on this slide here, is just to kind of remind people that ending veteran homelessness is within our reach. It's even been at different times closer within our reach, but it's still within our reach. And there are many communities who have reduced veteran homelessness to the point to where they would say they've ended homelessness, which has a very specific definition, but of people coming in and out of homelessness. But in Tucson, for quite some time now, we have been in reach. When you look at in the last point in time count of our community, the total number of veterans who were unsheltered on the streets were 107. So that's a number we can work with. This isn't thousands of individuals. That's a number we can work with. And I'm pleased to say that in the last year, we've been really working with the VA and other VA providers, contractors, to talk about how we can work together as a community to get that 107 down to zero. It's critically, I think, important for people to recognize and understand and believe that we can do that. I think sometimes we have this sense that you can't end homelessness. Well, we actually can. It is monitored, controlled, and we can actually emphasize it. The other reason that I wanted to mention that, the VA and veterans have had such progress in housing is that the VA has been very committed to practices that work, and they've invested the revenues and the dollars required to actually implement those practices. Whatever we do in our community, there is a science to it. There is some evidence of what might work better than another, and it all has cost. And we can play with the cost a little bit, but bottom line is, if something's funded at 50%, you can't get to the goal. So the VA has really taken the effort to make sure that they're funding the services to the level that's needed. I want to kind of zero in now and talk a little bit more about what we're doing at OPCS very briefly, because I know Melanie will be talking in more in depth about the actual programs and services. But essentially, and part of this is to save you from all of the terminology and such, because essentially we have transitional housing and we have low barrier shelter. And we call it lots of different things, but we have programs in which folks come in and they are coming out of, say, a hospital, or they're coming out of a psychiatric facility, or they're coming right off the streets, and they really just need immediate shelter and support and help. And that's a number of our programs are designed so that as long as someone isn't a danger to themselves or others, that they can get right into that housing without a lot of barriers, right into that shelter. And then we have other programs which look a little bit more like what some people might call transitional housing, call it lots of different things, but they basically have a plan and more work towards getting into their permanent housing. And so they're doing more work towards that, and they're more ready to get into that permanent housing. You can get to permanent from both sides, but they're just a little different in that sense. I think the an important piece to everything we talk about that I suggest people take home today is that, like all our programs, it's about access, and it's about access to services. And so everyone coming into OPCS housing has access. Not everyone does it, but they have access to addiction treatment, employment coaching, life skills training, that will help them get to the next stage in their life. And all we really have as a precondition, as I mentioned before, is this safety of the community and the safety of the staff. But for most people, that's not the issue. It's really, they just need some place to be able to safely be themselves. So that's a few little slides and a few little bit of an overview. Without further ado, though, I'd like to pass this over to folks who are working day to day in this area, who can kind of tell us a little bit more about what they're doing and how that's impacting veterans. And then we're going to have a really good time taking a virtual tour of some of our veteran properties with Melanie, and then we'll have a question and answer towards the end. So without further ado, I pass it over to you, Patrick.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and hello to all the veterans out there in attendance. Thank you for your service. I appreciate you. My name is Patrick Hazlett. I'm the HCHV supervisor over here at the Southern Arizona VA. I'm also an Army veteran, and I've still active with the Arizona National Guard, almost 12 years of service. Here to talk to you today a bit about first numbers, and then what works in housing and what's next in veteran housing and getting veterans off the street. So I wasn't able to find the PIT count numbers nationally for fiscal year 25, but for 24, nationally, we're looking at about 33,000 homeless veterans, right? And in fiscal year 24 in Pima County, that's 181. And across our catchment area, 554. The Southern Arizona VA's catchment area is actually quite large. We don't just cover Pima, but we also cover Santa Cruz, Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, Pinal, and Yuma counties. So we have a pretty large reach. And the number in fiscal year 25 was 238 total for the pit count. The pit count's an interesting tool, right? It's great for helping us identify where veterans are, where they may be congregating if they're homeless, but it doesn't give us the full picture, right? It's just a snapshot. So in fiscal year 25, our programs actually moved 499 veterans into permanent housing. Over the course of the year, we also engaged with 424 brand new veterans to our catchment area through street outreach, our HCHV walking clinic, and we also held a large surge event in August, which was a week-long push out on the streets, really tracking down veterans and holding events so that we could wrap veterans in services who were in need of housing. And throughout the year, out of just those 424 brand new veterans, we were able to house 276 of them in interim or permanent housing. Interim housing is considered our grant per diem programs and our contract emergency residential services that OPCS offers, and also through our SSVF programs with Project Action for Veterans. So we've had a bit of success. You know, the numbers, they fluctuate from year to year. But overall, I think we're doing well. Can we do better? Yes, we totally can. But there are some barriers to that, unfortunately. First and foremost, I think the biggest one is the fact that our veterans are very transitory, right? They sometimes, if they're homeless, they move from city to city. And it's important to take that into account. Oftentimes, the homeless population is looking for a place where they're comfortable. And I think sometimes when we're looking for permanent housing, we don't necessarily take that into account. We don't take the veteran's voice or the veteran's needs into account. And this is where I'm going to lead into what works, right? I've worked at 3 different VAs in homeless programs in all 3. I've worked at Spark Matsunaga in Hawaii. I've worked at Bruce W. Carter in Miami, and now here that's at the VA Southern Arizona. And, you know, what do we need? Everybody says this. We all say this all the time. We need affordable housing, right? And getting there, unfortunately, is not something the VA is structured to fund. But we can fund programs that help veterans get off the street to then find that affordable housing. But the real thing, again, is the veteran's voice. We really need to listen to our veterans. And what works the best is conducting that street outreach with empathy, right? We need to be going out, listening to the veterans. What are their needs? What are their wants? We all know that, you know, I'm sure a lot of the people who work in this field have seen this before, where you get a veteran and you get them placed into permanent housing, and 2 months later they're out, they're back on the street again. And a lot of times that's because we're not listening to what the veteran wants. If we just get them into a place to get them into a place, that's not going to help, right? They're going to be unhappy there. They're probably going to want to return to what they were doing. And that affects their mental health, that affects possibly their substance use habits, which is another barrier. Oftentimes, a lot of veterans, specifically that are eligible to participate in healthcare for homeless veterans programs at the VA, we also work with a subset population of veterans who are not eligible for any other VA services. They can't get healthcare here. They can't get mental health care here due to the status of their military discharge. So that can also be a barrier for some of the veterans that we work with. But again, as long as we're listening to veterans and we're taking their voice into account and taking their desires into account, that's really what's going to drive success in getting people into permanent housing and ensuring that they stay in permanent housing. I talked some numbers earlier. We were lucky enough this year to have a 4.6% rate of return to homelessness out of that 499 veterans that we placed in permanent housing. So we're doing pretty well, I think, with listening to the voice. But of the veteran, but that's really an important piece to this, is listening to the veterans, and that's what really works. Um, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about what's next for us. Um, so we're always looking to grow our, move out with tentacles, kind of like an octopus, and get tied in with our community resources. We have a large catchment area, so it can be difficult to engage with programs that are out in, say, Greenlee County. But we're trying our best to do that, and I think we're making some inroads there. We're hoping to expand our transitional housing programs, especially in our outlying counties, because there are homeless veterans out there too. They're not just here in Pima County and Tucson. Um, so we're really looking at that. Interestingly, I got an inquiry from a possible GPD program, maybe coming on board, hopefully for the next fiscal year. So that's encouraging news. We're also going to be conducting another Home for the Holidays surge event, very similar to what we did back in August with the street outreach and community events. We're going to be doing a Home for the Holidays surge event that we'll complete before January 30th, where we're going to conduct more intensive street outreach and try and get a lot more street homeless veterans right off the streets and into housing, whether that's interim housing or permanent. And after that, the Southern Arizona VA has decided that we are going to start doing mini surge outreach events every quarter going forward. We had such great success back in August that, and the model just works. It's really, being out there on the street and not just waiting for people to come to you, but going to find them is what really works here. And we're always looking to expand our collaboration with community partners. And a lot of that is informal, right? It's just meeting with folks. It's not contractual. It's not through any type of grant process. It's just building those relationships and, organizations making friends. That's what helps our veterans too. Because if the VA has a lot of resources, but if there's something out there that this veteran needs that we don't have, and again, we're wanting to listen to the veteran's voice. And we know that OPCS, for example, has that service, and we have a good working relationship with you. We can all come together and work to help that veteran out. I always say, I'm in this job to put myself out of a job. That's the whole purpose of what we do, is because no veteran should ever be on the street or ever be without a roof over their head or a safe place to live. And as a veteran, I firmly believe that. So I will yield the floor back. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone. And again, thank you for your service to all the veterans out there in the audience.
Yes. Thank you very much, Patrick. It's very, very informative. It actually leads me to a question, which I'm actually not supposed to be in questions, or maybe a comment, clarification. You mentioned that you had like a little under 5% of folks going back into homelessness in those out of that number. So that's like a 95% housing retention, depending on how that's defined, term, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, over 95%. That's
Yeah.
correct.
And I think
Mhm.
that's where um, government and nonprofits, we're not the best marketers or cheerleaders. And I think the average person on the street doesn't realize that if you do things right, that there's enough science evidence and there's enough, knowledge out there that if we do things well and correctly, that you get really good results. I think most people are on the
Yeah.
assumption that we get really bad results, but you get really good results, way higher than what the average person would think. And so it seems like
Mhm.
getting that message out to people that what we're doing, we're so busy in the work that we're not telling people what works and how well it's working.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Oftentimes we're so focused on the here and now, and we're working with the veteran that's in front of us, or getting the contract set up to make sure we have transitional or permanent housing available. We forget to cheerlead for ourselves, and that's something everyone in the homeless community, the homeless programs community, should be doing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think one of the things I came from the clinical side in behavioral health, And one of the things in addiction treatment that we didn't shout enough about is that recovery from addiction treatment is actually really high and really
Hmm.
successful, and it really works very well. And we know what works really well, and because we kind of focus on what the failure, that's the one we remember is the one that didn't work that well that time. And in
Hmm.
reality, the outcomes for interventions like addiction treatment or the outcomes for the housing intervention is higher than other medical, what am I trying to say, medical interventions
Yes. Hmm.
that people don't realize how successful this is.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but it takes a village, right? It takes the team. It takes you. It takes us. It takes our other grantees and other community providers who, again, may not have those official organizational relationships with us, but we're able to still work with them. It takes that village to make sure that we have this type of success rate.
I agree. I agree. And towards the end of this, well, no really difficult questions, I don't think, but definitely want to take questions from folks in the audience, and also just I think part of the focus for us too today and every one of these webinars, they're really geared towards folks who are in our community. And we'll talk a little bit later then about like how do people access help? How do they help someone they see in their neighborhood or a relative? And I know that's a whole thing, but we can talk
Yeah.
about that towards the end maybe so that the viewer here today can get some sense of what they can do. A lot of times in homelessness, I think a lot of folks feel sort of paralyzed, like they don't know what they can
Hmm.
do. We don't,
Yeah.
so that'll be helpful. But, and thank you for your service and thank you for jumping in here and filling in today. It's
Yeah.
good
No
to have you
problem.
on. So that leaves us to the amazing, interesting, fantastic, wonderful, going to have us laughing in stitches now. It's too big of a buildup, isn't it? And that is Melanie, who has been with OPCS for quite some time and has dedicated herself to, night and day to working on these veteran programs that we have. And it's so we appreciate her. We're grateful and looking forward to hear what you have to say about what's going on.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom, for that immense buildup. I'm sure to fall flat on my face now. Um, Appreciate that. So, yes, I do manage our veterans programs here with Oak Public Community Services. We have 5 programs across 5 properties right now, 4 of which are primarily dedicated to veterans who are experiencing homelessness. But even with our substance use program, we are always screening those veterans to see if they do meet those homeless criteria. And then if that is the case, we are working to transition them into one of the other programs so that once they have, completed their substance abuse program, they're able to continue with stability and work on getting into permanent housing. We don't want to, someone to put in all of that hard work to try to get over their substance use issue, only to return back to the streets where it's going to be much harder for them to continue making progress on their recovery. So I just thought that was important to mention. But with our homeless programs, we do, as you mentioned, we have the bridge housing, we have the low barrier shelters, and we are really dedicated to working with every veteran who we encounter as long as we can. So we definitely utilize that housing first and harm reduction approach. So we're able to work with veterans who might have some mental health issues, who might have substance use issues, who may be currently ongoing using substances and have no intentions to stop using, but they are committed to getting off the streets and getting into housing. And as long as we have a veteran who wants to get into housing, we're fully committed to finding ways to help them get into that housing. Everyone has the right to voice and choice, and that really looks different for every person. And we want to honor that because, they're their own subject matter experts. They know what's going to work best for them. And if I sit here and try to tell them what's going to work best, we're just going to lose them. All of our programs provide very intensive wraparound case management services. We have life skills groups, individual life skills. we really kind of work to identify with each veteran what is going on, like what contributed to their current situation of homelessness, and how can we mitigate that? What can we do so that when we get this veteran housed, they're going to be successful? That might look like for some of our aging veteran populations, maybe they need a payee, perhaps they've been being taken advantage of. People are using their money. So if we can get them a payee, once we get them back into an apartment, those bills are going to get paid and they can't be evicted for a non-payment because someone else is ensuring that bill gets paid. We really screen our veterans, are they eligible for service-connected income that they are not getting? And if so, then we work very closely with Lori Keeper over at the VA to get them screened and begin that process. We help them apply for Social Security benefits if that's something. We also have connections with several agencies as well as our own internal employment specialists to help people get back to work if that is something they want and are willing to do. We know that for our veterans, being self-sufficient is a source of pride for them, and we want to help them get back to that really place of pride and understanding and where they want to go, living that self-directed life. Um, you know, we have programs that are able to work with a variety of clients, regardless of necessarily like various criminal backgrounds. And some of our programs are even able to work with veterans who have sex offense charges on their records, which we have found is very difficult to find other placement and programs for that population. But we have embraced that population and we've created some systems in place. We have a really good network of housing opportunities for those veterans. And at the end of the day, everybody really does deserve housing. So we're committed to working with all populations. Our grant per diem program is pretty special in that we can accept veterans who are on that humanitarian level, which Patrick was talking about. So those are veterans who may not be eligible for their full VA medical benefits. They may not be able to access most of the services, but we are still able to get them into transitional housing and provide them the same services. So we're going to help them get, referred for employment. We're going to do a disability application if that's what they need. We're going to try and get them connected to Primavera's PAV program, Project Action Vets, which does some rapid rehousing for veterans and any other programs and services that they are eligible for. We work a great deal with community partners and providers to give veterans choice. Sometimes they don't want to go through the VA for all of their medical needs, and we can get them connected to community resources. Um, in fact, our GPD program has some very exciting things coming up. It's actually the 18 unit building that we're building over here at our 3rd Street location. We will be shortly transitioning all of our GPD clients from their two current properties over to this program. They currently have a living situation where they have shared rooms, and we know that that's just not always the best option for our veterans. Once they move over to the new building, they're going to have a single studio-like living situation. They'll be able to kind of go into their own space and shut their doors and be able to really kind of like help get healthy and heal, process in peace. It'll be much easier for us to accommodate veterans and all of their pets, which we know are very important to our veterans, and sometimes is it a determining factor if a veteran's willing to come into shelter? Like, hey, I've had this dog with me for the last 5 years. I'm not going into shelter without my dog. Okay, cool. Bring the dog. We currently do allow pets at all of our properties, but occasionally it can be difficult if multiple people have multiple pets in a small room. So we're going to be able to do a lot of really good work for these veterans. We're also renovating some casitas, which are small 1 bedroom units that are on property, and we will be much more able to accommodate families with children who are being referred into our GPD program. Currently, we are contracted to work with this population, but it really is dependent on space and availability. And right now, we sometimes have to, do we have the space for female veterans or do we have the space for families? And once these renovations are complete, we're going to be able to accept both, no questions asked. I'm very excited about that opportunity. Um, I don't know, just overall, like we're doing a lot of really good work with our veterans. Our case managers are very talented, highly efficient. They are always looking for outside opportunities, outside of the box housing solutions, really working with the veterans to help them. Sometimes traditional housing opportunities aren't a great fit for them. Okay, well, what else can we do? We've made connections with various boarding care facilities in the community. So that's a shared sort of living space where they would share a room with another veteran. They pay, a reasonable amount. All of their utilities are included. Sometimes 2 or 3 hot meals a day are included. Some of these places even have like transportation and group activities. So really looking at all of the options that might be available to a veteran and helping them find a solution that's going to be long-term and something that they're really happy with. All right. Now I believe we're about to take a tour of the new property. It's actually stopped raining, so that'll be exciting.
Oh, nice. Oh, I've been inside all morning. I didn't even know it was raining.
It rained so hard a little bit ago. I was like drenched.
Oh, wow.
Right, right. So
Okay, well,
just
so
put
you're
a
gonna you put on your hard hat, and
I
is there like
am
some
gonna
train?
I am gonna put on my hard hat and then we shall go.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, I see it starting. So this is our property on Third
Oh.
Street and Dodge. Oh,
We're
nice.
here. All right. So this is our Third and Dodge location. We currently house our substance abuse program over here on the left side of the property. The plan will be to transition these veterans over to one of our other properties, and we'll be moving some of our contract and transitional housing program clients onto this side after some renovations. And we will continue to provide case management, life skills groups, other groups. The goal is that this will become sort of a hub for our veteran services and sort of the middle of where everything happens for our veterans. Um, this is our new GPD apartment complex that is being built. This is the concept, of course, for it. We'll have covered patio area, seating, some space for all of our clients to play with their pets, a little pet area. We'll have the casitas on this side and then um, moving through here. Okay, it's not too squishy. Moving. So this area over here will be sort of renovated. We'll have, I'm not sure if we'll have playground equipment, but we will definitely have area for pets. We have the covered area that our veterans will be able to congregate in and sort of have that group setting. We have our casitas over here. They are going to be ADA compliant and able to accommodate our families. They are 1 bedroom, small, like 1 bedroom houses. Very excited for that. We'll be able to accommodate families of really any capacity. So families with children is going to be huge, but we do have sometimes veterans who come in with like a father or son or multiple generations of family members, and we're going to have more space and be able to just really look at a bigger picture and have the ability to work with more veteran families regardless of their composition and stuff. And try not to squish in much of the mud, but we have our new building, which is going to have a large shared community kitchen, as well as each of the units having like small mini refrigerators and microwaves so that they are able to, kind of like have a snack, things like that, but they'll also be able to come in and cook a whole meal. Once it's open, we're going to have a lot of volunteer opportunities, community engagement opportunities, definitely opportunities for people to come in and maybe like help cook a meal for people. As we are ready to open up the units, there will be opportunities for people to kind of help like us furnish the apartments and make them really like family friendly, veteran friendly, very warm and opening. We're very excited for this opportunity just to kind of make this from scratch and make it a very warm, welcoming place for our veterans to be able to come in off of the streets and also just feel like comfortable and feel at home and get used to sort of what it's like to have their own place in their own space so that when they transition from our program into their own permanent housing, it's not a huge shift for them. They're like, yeah, I can do this. I've been doing it. So that's something we're really excited about. Were you able to get a good picture of them?
I'm a little bit closer.
A little bit closer. Watch out, don't. We said we'll have 18 individual units over here. The whole bottom floor will be accessible. So a lot of our veterans we're getting in are sort of that aging population. So we'll be able to accommodate clients with walkers and wheelchairs, things like that. Yeah, and then we'll have our space upstairs for people as well. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting and I can't wait for it to open and for us to transition our clients over. All right.
Perfect.
Whoa. Today.
All right. Well, I know now Melanie is heading back to her computer. I could fill this time with, bad dad jokes, but I think I'll just give her a minute to get set up and then we can go moving into some of the questions that we already have maybe, and then if any questions come in from the community. Perfect.
We do have one question to Patrick. It's what are examples of key things that you've heard from veterans as you've listened that have changed what you do?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been I've been doing this for a long time. And so I'm gonna have to think of one really quick. So I actually used to be a GPD liaison, not too long ago, actually, and I've done it across two different cities. And when I was working in Miami, we actually had a program in Key West, and I had a veteran down there who he wanted to stay in the Keys. And my whole idea was, no, we need to get you into HUD-VASH and closer to the medical center. And he disengaged with me, right? And I couldn't figure out why. And so finally I asked him, he's like, I told you I don't want to go there. I want to stay down here. And it just made me stop and think that was a real turning point in my career in the homeless programs. Like, this is what this guy wants. If we put him somewhere where he's not going to want to be, he's not going to stay there. And so we found a place, actually on Marathon for him in the Keys, and that was willing to take a HUD-VASH voucher, and we were able to get him discharged from the program. And he was still housed there when I left the Miami VA to move out here to Arizona 5 years ago. So, yeah, the voice of the veteran is the most important thing.
Thank you. Yeah, that, it seems sometimes, and I've been doing this work a long time, obvious. But sometimes the obvious isn't obvious. And I've definitely had lots of veterans. I used to work as a clinical director at our veteran programs years ago. And, listening to folks and maybe offering suggestions, but ultimately allowing people to have choice and
Mhm.
allowing people to make mistakes and not judging them for that and then having them learn from them. Everyone has their own path. And I don't have to agree with everything that they're suggesting, but I
Mhm.
have to support them and try and help them get there. And then, yeah, it's the old one thing I definitely learned as a counselor was that if I'm judgmental of someone or if I don't listen to them, then when the time is right, they're not going to come back. Whereas as long as I'm listening and
Mhm.
working with them, even if this time is not the right time, when it is the right time, they're going to come back to me. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so it makes a big difference.
Yeah, very important.
Anything else from the community?
Nope, that's it
Okay.
for now. People can still submit questions though.
All right. Feel free to submit questions. We're looking for the really hard ones. No worries. Um, I do have some thoughts, some questions that kind of come up, I think, regularly in the community. So if somebody's out here and they're trying to help somebody get into, or if they are trying to get into services or into housing, is there like the easiest way to do that or the best recommendation you might have?
I would say, it depends on where they're at, but if they can make it to Building 90 over here at the VA main campus, have them just walk in. We take walk-ins Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 o'clock. Um, but if it's after hours, if it's a different, if they're unable to maybe travel here, have them call 877-424-3838, which is the national hotline for homelessness, for veteran homelessness. Again, that's 877-424-3838.
Great.
Yeah. I would like to add to that our GPD program is actually one of the programs where we could self-refer as well. So I do have a lot
Mhm.
of contacts from the community who will reach out to me directly if they have a veteran, and I'm able to kind of screen and assess them to see if they are like suitable and appropriate for the program. And if so, I'm able to kind of like put them into a bed same day as well, and then contact our GPD liaison and let them know we have an admission.
Mhm.
We can do after hours admits for the contract programs that comes directly from the VAED, and then we are working on being able to accept after hours admits for the GPD program as well. So those
Oh,
kind of
that's awesome.
people, those people would just kind of give me a call, and I'd screen them real quick regardless of weekend or night, and then we could put them in a bed as well. So we're really working with the VA to come up with ways to not have to wait until those business hours to get someone off the streets if they're ready to come into housing.
That's good to know. Always making improvements. The other question that I think comes up a lot in the community is, if I'm somebody in the community, and I want to give in some way, I want to support this effort in some way. Is there anything I can do to support this effort to try and help veterans?
Most definitely. Our walk-in clinic here in Building 90 on the Southern Arizona VA campus, we actually have a clothing room and a food pantry that we take donations almost every day. Um, and we need them every day. Also, alternatively, people can donate to our voluntary services here at the facility for the Southern Arizona VA. Also, they can donate directly to our GPD and contract emergency residential services providers. Um, if OPCS or Esperanza are in need of things, sometimes if we have too much, I'll point people in another direction. So there's no wrong door for donations. We'll take them anytime.
That makes sense. We kind of have I have a rule that we will take money in any form or fashion, in any way. But for us, it's helptucson.org. Go on helptucson.org. There's, information there in the different programs and either how to give or how to support it. Melanie, is there stuff that you've noticed that like you just have a hard time getting donation wise, gaps in things for veterans?
So one of the biggest gaps I feel like we have just in the program, it does come back to money, right? So veterans who need assistance with deposits, or maybe they owe quite a bit of money on a past utility bill. We do utilize the homes fund quite often, but those bills can be very large. I just got a
Mhm.
request for $1,500 today that I need to kind of sit down and work with that veteran and see how much of that they can pay versus what we will be able to help them with. We're going to figure it out, but really donations to our homes funds that can assist with those sorts of things would be one of the biggest helps for us currently. And then once the new buildings are up and running, just having volunteers over here to help us with like meals and anything that might come up for our veterans as well.
Great.
Beds, having beds. I know as an agency, we don't want any veteran or any person at all to discharge to their own home and end up sleeping on the floor the first night. So we utilize homes funds to purchase beds, blow-up mattresses, things like that. Maybe even furniture that could be stored somewhere that's off-site so that when a veteran moves into their home, we can take them kind of shopping. That would be very nice. Like pick out a few things and have the ability to get them delivered.
Makes sense. Yeah, I know. Probably, just to clarify, some of our participants today might not be familiar. The home fund for OPCS started years ago and simply is a way that people can donate to the organization, and it's earmarked towards clients' needs that are not met through traditional funding sources. So people can have all kinds of interesting things that they need. And so the donor has the assurance that it's going directly to clients. And we then have the flexibility as an organization so that we don't have one thing getting in the way of success. It takes a bunch of ingredients, and it's really hard when you're missing one ingredient that maybe regular traditional funding doesn't provide. And so the home fund is a godsend for us to be able to then provide that diversity in things, and it could be anything. It's amazing to me now that it can cost $125 just to apply for an apartment. Um, and that's a lot of money just to not even sure if you're going to get approved. Then, like you say, clothing and beds and just the basics, beds for children. It's just, who wants to move someone into an apartment with no beds, with children? It's just inappropriate. So we'll always find a way to do that. And I know the VA works hard to find ways to support that. And for us, the home fund is definitely a big way to do that.
We have an additional question for Patrick. It is, so I've heard from veterans who feel at risk of losing their housing that there's no assistance to keep the housing. They'd have to literally be on the street for at least a night before they could get assistance. Is this accurate? And if so, after you work yourself out of a job, would something like that support be created?
So actually, that is inaccurate. Our Project Action for Veterans program, which is an SSVF grant or supportive services for veterans families, um, provides eviction prevention services to veterans. So if a veteran is unstable, if they're behind on rent and they receive an eviction notice, they can actually take that right over to PAV, and PAV, Project Action for Veterans, which is consequently directly across the street from building 90 on South 6th Avenue, um, here in Tucson. We can throw a rock and hit their window if we wanted to. Is right there, and they have eviction prevention funds. They get those monies from the National Homeless Program Office in Tampa every year. So that is incorrect. There are abilities to prevent people from being evicted or losing their housing. I think I missed the second part to that question. Oh, would something like that be created? Well, it already exists. So.
Nice. Yeah, and it seems like that would bear out in your retention numbers. I mean, if that was a common thing where people just got evicted and ended up homeless again without any support, you would obviously not have over 95% still in housing. So
Exactly.
it definitely that makes sense.
And I would like to point out just kind of on that when they're talking about people must have spent at least one night literally homeless. Veterans are able to present over to the homeless clinic, and if they can meet like specific criteria, let's say they're being evicted today, they are able
Hmm.
to be referred over to our programs today to prevent them having to spend that night on the streets.
Yep.
So Building 90 works very, very hard to prevent those problems if possible and to make them as short term as possible if needed.
Yeah. Um, Actually, uh, U.S. law gives us the ability to work with people up to 14 days out of losing their housing, right? So if someone's potentially, they know they're going to lose their housing, they can come to us 2 weeks before that happens, and we can get them into a safe place like OPCS, so that they can stay there, while we work on a plan to find alternative housing for them.
Very good. The other question that I kind of came up as you were talking earlier, Patrick, in my mind was, it seems like, if I remember, hopefully this is still true, the the clinic, the walk-in homeless clinic over there at the VA had a number of things for veterans, from ranging from haircuts to laundry to things like that. Is that still the case?
Yes, we have a laundry room. We have bathrooms with showers. Homeless veterans can come in here and shower if they need to. We do have, we're lucky, so happy to say that we do have a volunteer barber again. She comes in on Wednesdays. She's off for the next 2 weeks, unfortunately, but she comes in on Wednesdays and cuts hair from nine to 1 o'clock. Um, and we have our barber shop set up, so we're ready to rock and roll for that. And that's in addition to our clothing room and our food pantry.
Great. No, that's very helpful. I think the more veterans know that, and the more the community knows how to get veterans over there, or to support them to get over there, is, I think, critical.
Hmm.
Uh, I always see veterans there every time I go over to the VA, so people are obviously using it.
Yeah, obviously we wish it was less. We wish there wasn't as much need for it.
Sure.
Um, Again, in the vein of putting ourselves out of a job, like, we want to see less and less homelessness, especially veteran homelessness. So that's what we're striving for.
And it's really good news to hear that there'll be more surges. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, as a just as a organizational leader in the community, when you look at the numbers and we look at the resources we have, I come away from it knowing, we can do this. We can bring this number down to zero, and that collaboration is key. So it's really wonderful to
Hmm.
see the VA being so collaborative and putting in that effort to work with us.
Yeah, just that week of the surge, we got, I want to say it was 46 people into transitional or permanent housing.
Yeah.
That surge event was pretty awesome. We even had one, from first contact with a veteran on one day, we got somebody into housing within 3 hours, signed a lease
Mm.
and everything. So those events are going to be key, but that only happens when you're on the streets and you're out there actively engaging folks who are homeless. A lot of times
Agreed.
people don't want to come in, so you
Agreed.
have to
Yeah,
inform them.
definitely. A lot of barriers to coming in, just leaving your stuff. Who's going to take care of it?
Yes.
You might lose things. People are thinking, well, I didn't succeed the last four times I tried something like this, so why try again? Or there's a lot of, they hear bad information from other people in the
Hmm.
community. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons that we definitely have to go to them. There's no doubt about it. I know you guys
Hmm.
work with the other outreach teams in town. OPCS has outreach, and yeah, and that sense of urgency. It's good to see, like, folks in the VA and in the provider field that you can get kind of used to this kind of work versus having this sense of urgency that, no, we can make this happen. COVID really created sense of urgency among a lot of agencies and nonprofits. And it seems like these surge events can also create this kind of let's get it done, work together, this urgency. Um, it's not business as usual. We're going to get this done.
Yeah.
One question.
Oh.
Hmm.
It's from, let's see, I'm at the downtown library, and one of the ways we've been trying to help patrons, veterans or civilian, after hours is by sending them to the Pima County Transition Center, since they have peer support folks there until midnight. Do you think this is a good strategy? We're open until 6 p.m. at Joel D. Valdez, and we usually get questions after hours.
Did they have a particular person for this question or? Well, I'll say anything's better than nothing, and it's hard to say from that amount of information whether it's a good strategy. I know someone like OPCS, we'd love to talk about it more, but it's kind of hard to say, and it is good to have some place to refer people to.
I think it would be important that the transition center has information about like the homeless clinic and other places where they can go as well. I'm sure they do, but it would be good to make sure that they have information for veterans specifically as well.
Sure. The other thing, I mean, even during regular hours, you can always call our main number and we can send out outreach. It's not going to be, this isn't usually going to be like an immediate thing, but at least we can get people connected and go do outreach at the library if that's what's needed. All right. Well, I think we've got just a couple minutes left. To kind of recap, there are lots of ways that you can support veterans in our community. It's important. I know that everyone really has a passion about this work, and I know that we care, and I know that we feel a debt to the veterans in our community, and this is important. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. You can learn more about OPCS at helptucson.org. You can obviously learn more about the VA and what's happening over there through their website and through the homeless clinic. Is there a particular website for the homeless clinic?
Um, the title's a little long. Just go to va.gov and search for Tucson Homeless Clinic.
Okay.
Again, va.gov and search for Tucson Homeless Clinic.
Okay. Wonderful.
Mhm.
All right. Well, again, Melanie, Patrick, everyone who's in the back scenes here supporting this, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your work. Thank you for supporting these webinars. And I look forward to many more. We will do what we can to get the information out there. I appreciate your time. I know you're all busy, so thank you.
Thanks for having me, Tom, and it's great to work with you guys as partners.
Thank you.